Welcome back to another episode of Out of Bounds on the Boomer Bust channel. I'm your host Terry, and today talking about Monique and this discussion of black women in bonnets, but even more deeper than that, kind of what that concept about black people and how they present themselves, what that all means and what that is. And so this is a discussion that I think has happened many times throughout the years. And has a little bit of heat on it right now. I know a number of outlets and things that I consume have at least mentioned, if not talked about it. So I don't know if it's, slower news time right now, or if this is just such a prevalent discussion that people really felt the need to weigh in on it. But either way, it's being talked about. And so, I would say that for me, when I first heard it, her talking about women wearing bonnets and how they present themselves, she was talking about mostly at airports where she was recounting her experiences. But this led to, the larger concept of how people present themselves out in public in general. And she was saying black queens, my sisters, all that, you got to take pride in how you present yourself when you go out. You represent yourself and your family and all that. And I was like, that's a problematic statement. And for me, I don't really care about Monique one way or the other. I know there's a lot of people against her and whatnot, but I didn't care one way or the other. I was just like, that's a very problematic statement. But it was nothing against her. I understood why. But once I started seeing the responses to it, that's what kind of caught my attention. Even people that disagree with her, the reasons why they disagree with her, still, I was like, oh, that's a little problematic. And so I realized that even though this was kind of a problematic statement to me, this presented as kind of a really excellent entrance into this conversation about interrogation and critique and challenge. So what that really means is that for people who are very interested in this conversation about should you wear a bonnet, should you not, whatever, a lot of it goes back to this question of appropriate. Usually people say no, because that's not appropriate to wear, or you could wear it here. It's appropriate for you to wear it there, but not here. And then there's some people that says, I think it's appropriate. That's fine. But this isn't appropriate. That'd be my limit, whatever. And so my pushback immediately, or I wouldn't even say pushback, but my question would be, is who decided what is appropriate? And so that's where you start this interrogation and this idea of interrogation, where you have these ideas, you have beliefs, you have values, but you have to then investigate and push, where did those come from? And I think most people, or adults I should say, they don't even do this. And you should, as a mature adult, question and conceptualize your thoughts and beliefs as you grow up and learn more. I don't think a lot of people do that. And so I would say even less people really question and interrogate the root of the knowledge that they believe to be true. And what you believe to be true is wearing a suit to interview is appropriate. That's professional. What you believe to be true is you don't say these type of words when talking to somebody of authority, or to your boss, or to somebody rich, or you have to act in this certain way for somebody to take you seriously, or you have to look like this in this space. And so people don't really go into why that is. A lot of times you just fall back on that's the way it is. And it might be the way it is. There's a lot of things that's the way it is. Slavery was the way it is. Segregation was the way it is. That doesn't mean that it's right, and it doesn't mean it can't be changed. But back to the point, you have to interrogate what appropriate means. And so when people say you're not supposed to wear a bonnet, or you're supposed to represent yourself respectfully. Okay, well, what would you consider respectful outside? And then you list those things. I would, even if you said, here's all the things I think are respectable. Or if you gave somebody a list and they did a checkbox, these are all the respectable things. Or on this list, these I would consider respectable. You have to ask yourself, why do you think that? Where did you learn that? And then where did the person that taught you that, where did they learn it? And what you will realize, hopefully, I honestly don't think there's any way around it because it's kind of factual. But what you should realize is that the vast majority of the things that we deem to be the way they are is because European people said it was. They set the standard. As they often say, the winner's the one that gets to write the story. And so who won? Who won in the colonization and taking over America, or what became the United States of America? Who won in certain wars? Who won as far as the war on racism by creating race and showing or trying to show other people which race is dominant? Who won that? And who enjoys the privilege of that? And so all that has been passed down through the years to us. So there's this idea of respectability politics, and black respectability politics, bunch of different ones, but in this particular instance, black respectability. And this thought is so problematic, not only because it's not factual. When you say that's not appropriate, that's this, that's not that, that's not factual. We do have a social contract, and that contract is written between us as people. However, a lot of that is informed by the white racist European people of the past and their customs. And so there is that. But at the same time, again, when you're looking back at these questions of appropriate, you understand with respectability politics that black people for a long time have had passed down these rules of what you can and cannot do, what you should and should do in order to pass by, to get along. And this is assimilation. This is survival at one point, meaning that in times of slavery, if you did this thing, you would be killed. In times of segregation, if you did these things, you would be killed. Here's how not to die. And then throughout the years, those things continued on and continued on and continued on. And you don't have the same threat, but people have to realize when you trace the roots back to that, that lives deep into the culture and the generation of people. When dress like a white man comes from, if you don't dress that way, then you will be killed, because they'll identify you as being uncivilized or whatever, and they feel the right to kill you. And then that goes towards the civil rights and segregation era, where if you don't dress this way, you can't be taken seriously. You won't be able to get into that school, or even if you have a PhD or whatever, you won't be able to write anywhere. You won't be able to get any jobs. You won't be able to be a politician. You won't be able to make any advancement if you don't look a certain way that needs to be respected, if you don't talk a certain way. And then that comes down and through the years to now, where, if you dress like this, you dress like they used to say a thug, or they still say thug. If you dress like a thug, a gangster, you dress like a hoodlum, then of course the cops are going to stop you. Of course the cops are going to harass you. They didn't know that you were whatever. They didn't know that you was this. Now, as we all know, that's not true. You can be a college educated graduate. You could be a college student. You could be a college professor. You could be a college president. And they will still do what they do, but they use the excuse sometimes for people that aren't really into it and really looking at what's happening. They hear this excuse of, you were dressed like this. oh, you were doing this, or you was in this neighborhood at this time. So it's a reason why you get to be treated that way. And so when you get to black respectability politics, it goes down that slippery slope of saying that you aren't worthy of respect or anything else, common decency, whatever, if you don't do these certain things. And the problem with that, it shouldn't be true. You should, as a person, be afforded those respects and assumptions just like everybody else, regardless of how your hair looks or how you're dressed or whatever. You should be treated with that compassion. But the other problem is it now justifies to people that if you aren't doing what these white standards are, then you aren't deserving of respect and should be treated a certain way. Or I wouldn't say should be, but you are not obligated. Sorry, you're apt to be treated a certain way. And that's the real deep problem with this whole bonnet thing and everything. And part of that is our Americanized mindset as well, where what we consider appropriate. So some would say, okay, Terry, I understand exactly what you're saying, but what if you're naked? We could all agree you can't be naked. And I think for a long time, I'd be like, yeah, no, that's public indecency. Now, there are laws. Obviously, there are laws. So, no, you can't be naked. You go to jail for that. But that still isn't the same to say that the laws dictate what's right. Because, again, a lot of laws were in place before that were problematic. Because the fact is, there's parts of the country, this country, but there's parts of the world where being naked or having less clothing than we wear is acceptable, is normal. There's certain cultures where that's how they dressed or that's how they were. I mean, again, one thing I always think as far as when you're talking about empathy or at least just this idea of globalization, whenever I think about the middle finger, like pretty much anywhere in America you go, you put your middle finger at somebody, that's going to be taken one way. But that in another place means something completely different, or it means nothing to them. But we think in terms of America, that's just what it is. The middle finger is bad. No, it's bad here. And so when you continue to interrogate and investigate these ideas of what's right, what's wrong, what's appropriate, you realize that they're rooted from America. They're rooted to a racist past. And so is it then our place to say they were right? Maybe you would say that. My thing, and here's why I differ with some people, because they're just like, oh, it's all wrong. My thing isn't that you have to come to the same conclusion as me. My thing is you have to interrogate yourself. And if you really challenge yourself, and at the end of the day, you say, no, I think wearing a suit and tie is the appropriate thing to do, then okay, that's your decision, that's your value, that's how you then continue. But the problem, as I've said before, is that too many people in our country, in our world, don't really interrogate the roots of our values and our ideologies and our concepts and our thoughts. And so we walk around as if it's fact, but that's not always the case. So anyway, obviously for me with the bonnets, it's fine. And people conflate those things too many times. That might not be attractive to you. That might not be the choice you would have made. That might not be comfortable for you for whatever reason. But that does not then equal that person doesn't deserve respect or anything else. Or that person's dumb, or that person's none of those assumptions get to be created just because you feel that way about that person's choice. So if they wear a bonnet, they're a person. That could be a president of a Fortune 500 company. That could be a teacher. That could be an ex-felon. That could be somebody's mother, somebody's daughter, or obviously somebody's daughter, but You know what I mean? Like, we can't keep putting things in a box. And that's where we get those issues, especially when you realize that those boxes were created by a European standard. So that's it for me. Go down comment section. Let me know what you think. Share it around. Get the conversation started. Thumbs up, subscribe, and thank you for going out of bounds.